Before we dive in, hit the subscribe button for more expert insights and honest conversations on Raising Mama podcast. Listen to the full episode at the link in the description.
This is one of the other things that I love talking about, is that in our evolutionary past and in hunter-gatherer societies, children spent all day in these multi-age playgroups. And so typically, if you have a band of, say, 25 people living together, there will be at least 6 to 8 children in that group. And they're going to be of all ages and genders. And the older ones kind of help to take care of the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
And they all play with and entertain one another. And they're such a wonderfully sort of self-sustaining, self-entertaining group that it allows actually the parents to go out and hunt and gather and pretty much leave them to their own devices for like many hours at a time. Like there's usually maybe one adult that will stay in camp just in case, but it can be anyone. And usually they are hardly involved at all in the children's play. Often it's someone who's older or who isn't feeling well that day or who's just going to stay in camp for whatever reason, but not someone who's going to be like super actively involved, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I love about the research on multi-age playgroups is that they've consistently shown that for the older children, they're able to provide a certain level of sort of informal care and teaching and supervision to the younger children, but it's still totally compatible with their own play. Like it doesn't feel hard for them the way that it feels for us to be like, okay, let's play Batman again, or whatever, because they're still in that phase of their development. But we have completely erased this from modern society. Like these multi-age playgroups are impossible because everyone gets slotted into age-specific school programs. And even outside of school hours, kids like roaming around the streets playing with each other isn't really considered safe anymore. But in hunter-gatherer societies, it is the most important form of childcare for moms, is just having kids entertain one another, which I think is so interesting. I also feel that, having your children at home can also be a lot harder, that my children do best when they're out and about with other children, but only if they're out and about with other children in an environment that they don't need to be constantly supervised, right? And when you look at hunter-gatherer societies, the way they do this, that's, kids are running around outdoors. There's no way really that they can get into much trouble because they don't have many possessions. There aren't many rules. And so parenting is super hands-off, which, I think there's a lot of discussion these days about, free play and it's good for our kids. And I'm like, but what about the parents? It's good for the parents. I mean, it makes it so much easier if you can just be like, go, run around, have fun, but there are hardly any spaces these days where we can do that.
That's what I think is so sad. It's like the worst thing you can do to a human, right? Like the horriblest punishment is we put them in solitary, right? Like, you go to prison, but then like really bad, you spend 23 hours alone. Like that is our darkest, deepest punishment. And it's like, with children, because it isn't, right? Like it wouldn't make sense for my kids to just roam free.
Also known as maternity leave.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah, but it's like, so then the very worst thing that's happening right now is then it's like the tablet, the cell phone, because your kid is now isolated into, right? Because that is the pacifying thing when you're at these adult spaces, is to give a cell phone. Or when you're like, I am maxed as mother, like cannot play Batman because I'm not meant to play Batman 12 hours a day. I'm supposed to be doing my hunter-gatherer stuff. It's like we give them a screen, which is like the form of isolation. It's this form of, you can't go outside. You're going to go crazy inside.
Yeah.
And then we lean on the screen, and then the
Yeah.
screen further just is like it further promotes community. It
Isolation.
makes it isolated. And I just
Totally.